In today's video, I'm going to be turning this dirty, dusty chunk of barn-dried walnut. This is about 30 years old or so. I'm going to take this and a regular chunk of walnut that I milled probably earlier this spring. I'm going to be taking these two things and turn them into this beautiful end table. Okay, so there's the top, sides, here's the shelf with these bow tie legs. This chunk is obviously not this particular chunk. I have a whole stack of these. That's what I used for the tabletop and the shelf. And the legs came from newly milled slabs. So that's what we're gonna do. It's the transformation process. I love it. I started out with this chunk of walnut that has been drying for about 30 years. So what's not on the video here is these are probably like 4-inch chunks, and they were rough cut with a chainsaw. So I actually had to put them on the mill and slab them down first just to get a couple of flat surfaces to work with. And then I just cut the shape out that I wanted, the contour with the chainsaw. And then it's the process of trying to get a straight edge and something that is going to fit in the mold. And also, I was kind of trying to measure how far apart I wanted that contour, how much epoxy I was, kind of wanting to put in there. So it ended up being a lot easier just to finish it off with the skill saw. So if you're watching this and have never really used a table saw or anything, I would recommend you don't get a lot of tips from me on this. That's probably not the safest way to be using a table saw. So yeah, it ended up just being a lot easier just to use the skill saw for this. I was able to just clamp it and have a lot better control. And also the thing that I didn't take into consideration when I was marking out my lines for that is that mold is actually wider at the top than it is at the bottom, and so I had to make several more cuts to get it fit in to the mold well where I wanted it. This is the last cut I made, and I was pretty happy with that. So I've got a little bit of a gap there, which I'm okay with. So this is the actual live edge, as you can probably tell. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take these pieces and I'm gonna shape this whole contour line right here. Sure, like I said, this is for my sister, so I'm even more free to experiment a little bit here. She's like, just surprise me. So I'm gonna use whatever color I feel like. All right, let's get to shaping. Again, this is not even like a plug or anything for this company. That turboplane head that I have on there is just such an awesome tool. Really made quick work of that contour. So I really shaped it in with the turboplaner and then just went over all those rough edges with the sander on the angle grinder. I really love these tools. So. And then I really just wanted to add a little bit of character, kind of simulate a live edge, and so I just kind of put a few indentations in there. And so, yeah, I'm not too worried about getting a really fine finish on that edge, because that's more than half of that edge is going to be tucked away beneath some colored epoxy. And so it's really kind of just the shape of the top and the contour of how that's going to flow. Alright, so at this point we've got 2 layers of epoxy resin down in the mold. I poured about a 1/4 inch thick layer of clear coat on the bottom, just to hold the pieces in place. That way they don't float or anything when I'm doing the rest of it. And then, so this is actually my 3rd pour here. And if there's anything I can say that I've learned that I feel like has been really important and really helped me do in doing woodworking and epoxy and stuff. It's that any surface of the wood that's going to come into contact with the epoxy resin needs to be sealed. That way you don't get air bubbles, and it's just going to look really bad if you don't take the time to seal it. And so that's why each layer I just poured some over the edges, so that by the time I finish the top, there's no chance of any bubbles escaping from the wood. And that's given that you mix your epoxy right. So what's not on the video is after this sat and cured for maybe a couple days, then you have to get it out of the mold. That's kind of tricky. Ideally, you'd want some probably like plastic chisels, a nice like sand mallet, and then it just begins a lot of sanding. And as you can see, I kind of beveled the edges there, and I just did that with a skill saw, turned it at a 45-degree angle and cut back a couple inches, so left with that nice kind of beveled edge. And then, yeah, just a lot of sanding, which I figured probably didn't need to be showcased on this video. This is the last stage of doing the tabletop here. This is just to show the first walnut epoxy river pour that I tried to do and how it turned out and the difference. We've got our tabletop here. I've put several coats of tung oil on it. Yeah, I'm really happy with how that turned out. As you can see, it's cold out now. That's about how long it has taken me to get to this next stage of the process, which is legs for this table. So what I have here is some really nice walnut. This is 2-inch milled walnut that I cut probably early spring this year. I tested it the other day, right at about 15% or a little less. In all honesty, I should probably not use this, and I should probably let it dry a little more. You really want it to be at least under 10% moisture. I've not yet built a kiln, it's on the list. So this has been air drying for probably maybe 7 months or so. Part of the challenge of working with rough cut lumber is when you go to the lumber yard or Lowe's or Home Depot or whatever, and you get lumber, there's straight edges. What you can do here is we've got a mark here and a mark here, 22 inches in between. So I'm going to take my handy dandy T-square here, and I'm just going to line it up with kind of my rough mark. So that's basically the cut that I want to make, and I'll just get a really good line established there. And yeah, so I'll kind of look at where I want to be. This is going to be my perpendicular edge here, and so then I'll take this guy here. Now, by putting this here, I've established a line that is parallel to this line. Okay, and so then I will just I'll mark that, and now I know that I have two cuts that are going to be parallel to each other and perpendicular to what's in between. If there is a little bit of wobble or any issues, then you can just call it rustic and get away with it. Once I had my parallel lines drawn, then I was able to just cut those with a skill saw. And my original intention had been to kind of just leave those legs as they were, because I do like the rustic look. I was even considering leaving the bark on to do a really live edge. And then kind of thought about it and kind of realized the tabletop itself is really not rustic, and the legs should probably follow suit. So What I ended up doing was I had these nice chunks to work with, and they were really beautiful once I sanded them down. So then I just took and turned them into bow ties. So kind of just measured for the center and brought them in so that they had a really nice concave, sharp concave look. Made my cuts with the skill saw and then finished it off with the bandsaw. And then I was able to just lay that first piece on and trace it so that they were going to be at least roughly similar. In between cutting out these legs and finishing them here in this shot is a lot of sanding. I really don't think it can be overemphasized just how much sanding there is that goes into really any finishing woodworking project. Now may be a good time for a couple of disclaimers. I'm really new to woodworking. If it seems like if you're a real woodworker watching this and you're like, why did he do this? It's because I didn't know any better. I've learned a lot from some really great YouTube creators out there with a lot of really great and honestly just inspiring content. The one thing with this table that I am kind of proud of is the fact that one day this is going to mean a lot more to my family and, you know, my sisters and my family. The wood came from my dad. The legs were from a tree we cleaned out of the fence line, you know, so it's a table for my sister, you know, with wood from our dad, and I made it, you know, so hopefully it can be some kind of family heirloom or something. So I do think it's really cool that I got to create something like that will hopefully stay in the family for a while. So there it is, a walnut epoxy river end table. If you made it all the way through the video, I really appreciate it. Thanks for watching. We have stuff like this for sale on our Etsy shop online, and we also have t-shirts and merchandise and stuff, so feel free to check us out. Thanks, guys.